What is up? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. Before we get into the review, I just wanted to let you know that our merch store is now live. We have all sorts: hats, t-shirts, hoodies, vests, mugs, even phone cases. So got it all. If you dig what we do, if you want to support the website and the channel, check out the link below for all the details. So for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from UK riff-slingers Malevolence. The band's new album, Where Only the Truth Is Spoken, will be released on June 20th via MLVLTD and Nuclear Blast Records. So, Malevolence. Malevolence have never waited for permission. From the underground to festival main stages, they built their reputation on sheer force of will, crushing live shows and an unshakable foundation of heavy riffs and harder work. Now, with their fourth studio album, Where Only the Truth Is Spoken, Sheffield's finest step into a new league. Recorded in California at Dave Grohl's legendary Studio 606. The album was tracked through the iconic Neve 8078 console, the same desk that captured game-changing records like Nirvana's Nevermind, Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, and Tom Petty's Wildflowers. For a band that's always pushed forward without compromise, it was the perfect setting to carve out a record that represents everything that Malevolence stands for. The album marks a new level of songwriting precision without sacrificing the band's trademark weight. Working alongside Grammy award-winning producer Josh Wilbur, who has worked with Lamb of God, Gojira and Trivium, the result is Malevolence at their most punishing, urgent and anthemic. Lyrically, Where Only the Truth Is Spoken reflects the principles that Malevolence have lived by since day one: honesty, loyalty and integrity. The story behind each song comes from lived experiences rather than just meaningless words on the page. It's not all about anger or aggression, there's a lot of weight in the words across the whole album. Whether that's addressing personal struggles, the state of the world, or the highs and lows of life, it was important to me to really step up on the lyrics of this album. I think you can feel that raw energy and emotion in every track, and I hope people will connect with it on a deeper level. It's 100% my proudest work to date, says Alex Taylor. That reputation has earned the respect of metal's elite. Lamb of God's Randy Blythe, a long-time supporter of the band, lends his unmistakable roar to In Spite, bringing two generations of heavy music together on one track. The collaboration is a nod of approval from a legend in the scene. But more than that, it's a statement. Malevolence aren't following in anyone's footsteps, they're carving their own. With Where Only the Truth Is Spoken delivers on everything Malevolence have built so far: harder riffs, bigger hooks, and an undeniable presence that has taken them from Sheffield to the world stage. So, yeah, Malevolence. Not our first time at the barbecue with Malevolence. We reviewed the band's previous album, Malicious Intent, back in 2022, which...
Is that 3 years ago already?
Yeah. Which we both enjoyed. And I was excited. I was excited about, what was going to come after that release. I kind of felt like that last album showed them taking big strides forward musically, which opened the door for them to continue to kind of build on that range of sounds even more. So, what do we make of this, Duncan? What did you think of the new Malevolence release?
So I really liked the previous one. If memory served, I think I came in that boy a 4.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Room for improvement, but like the there's more than the foundations present in the actual release. I think what Malevolence have in spades is just the ability to continually just throw incredible riffs, which there seems to be. It's almost like Mary Poppins' bag. There just seems to be a never-ending supply of these like phenomenal riffs.
Yeah.
I think also what stands them in good stead is you can chart the progression, not necessarily progression in terms of like songwriting, although that does get better on every album. I think it's more a confidence thing. I think as they've gone further into their career where some bands sometimes take their foot off the pedal, or maybe kind of get slightly complacent that they have made a reputation, they've got a fan base, so they can sometimes be a little bit too experimental, you know, just like bringing I was going to say a needless saxophone, but every album should have a saxophone. But you know, like bands that start to go just maybe too far away from the core tenets of what got them their start or their fan base.
Yeah.
It can happen. Malevolence have never really done that. If anything, what they seem to be able to do is show like real growth in that kind of that ability to really lean into really good songwriting, really crunchy. Like they've got a great knack for picking who records their albums, the overall like production, and then the flow of their albums as well. I think one of the things I really liked about the previous album was that it felt like the band had like a super clear vision on what they were doing and like a malicious intent, if you will, and then you deliver. I'm sure that's what the album was named after, and they were fully locked into that. So hearing them now move up to like the next level again, there's always that concern of like the band keeps charting bigger. When's the drop off point? When when they take the eye off the prize? When does stuff start sneaking in that maybe makes you go, oh no, I'm looking at you, architects. And I'm happy to say that actually that's not happened here at all. I think if anything, Malevolence have just doubled down on creating that grand, thick, heavy, crunchy, riffy sound. This one here sounds like super polished, but not in a way where you're actually losing any of the gruff, which I like. I kind of love that about it. It sounds grand. Actually, had you not mentioned the fact that, well, I already knew there was a Lamb of God connection here because Randy Blythe's on it, but had you not mentioned that, you know, the guy behind the desk has worked with bands like Lamb of God, I can almost chart, like, see when Lamb of God got past me with the third album, like all the albums just uniformly sounded huge. Well, that was just like a given. You never really had to worry about the production as much as we maybe had to do on some of the previous albums. It was just locked in. Lamb of God is going to be produced great. Malevolence have kind of landed that here as well. The production in this just sounds fucking huge. Right, guitars are weighty, but still retain that bite, that kind of hardcore crunch that you kind of want. The drum production is chef's kiss good. It's not fucked around with too much. But it has a kind of almost 2000s metalcore feel about it. I really like it. Vocally, Jesus Christ, I love the clarity in his voice, even like the savage elements behind it. Like we've talked about this for a couple of releases recently, and I think the reason that I remark on it in the way I do is that there is a clear line where enunciation and definition sometimes gives way for brute force, and that's not the case with Malevolence. So much so here that at times I was kind of sitting back going like that. How we've just like settled into our sound in the best possible way. I love the melodic kind of touches, which kind of been hinted on in the past, but really kind of more leaned into here. The work with Randy Blythe on this is fucking awesome. Like Randy Blythe's just got an incredible voice anyway. He should be on every album that any band does. Should be a guest appearance by Randy Blythe. But In Spite, which comes very late in the album, which I also appreciate. I like bands that are like that. Here's our opening track, and here's the first guest appearance track, and you're like, this is really early to be giving us someone that isn't a core member of the band. They save that right towards the end, where if anything, the album has already kind of shown you its wares. If you were at the market stall, it's kind of already shown you all the stuff and the stuff underneath the table by that point. So when Randy comes in, he's actually adding a little bit extra something on top of it that kind of spruces up the kind of closing three tracks. The other thing about this one is, like, I looked at the runtime originally when this came in, and I'll be honest, I did wince a little bit because I want to say the previous album was shorter than this. Now, having not gone back and listened to the previous album, that is a guess. But I always get a wee bit wary. Bands of this particular genre start to push the album length too close to the 50-minute plus mark. Is there going to be enough there to keep my attention? Did not need to worry about that here at all. This album keeps a variety of switching up between kind of core, like kind of catchier elements over kind of massive choruses, or segments where they give you, I was going to say unconventional beatdowns, but it's not. It's actually more kind of 2000s metalcore beatdowns where, you know, the pacing isn't slowed down to like a deathcore breakdown, but it's all that kind of, use all the chunky double bass stuff where they're kind of very riffy, but just slowed down, kind of Killswitchy, if you know what I mean. It's like Killswitch used to do that all the time. They probably still do. I just don't listen to Killswitch. So you get all those elements as well, and they mix those with bits that are just brutal breakdowns and other bits which kind of lean into a little bit more of the lead work. So it flows really well. They've got a really good kind of contrast of where songs start, finish, and similar elements between tracks. As always, and we'll always come back to Malevolence's key is just the guitar writing, riff writing ability, of which it just seems to get better on every album. The mixture of riffs here is just awesome. Like by the time you get through to like the kind of midway mark of the album, kind of flipping the vinyl side, as Dave would call it, of like Salt of the Wind, which is a track that really leads into, once again, thinking about kind of 2000s metalcore, the kind of clean Shadows Fall, sort of clean guitar-y playing stuff before you get like banged in the face with something a bit more chunky. The switches up between all that are really, really cleverly placed, and they just, once again, the attention to that songwriting detail really rewarding as well. I got through this album at the first time, and I realised I'd settled into it in a non-critical way. Like I just kind of let it wash over me a little bit, and kind of got to the end. It was like that. I jotted like even remotely a mental thought here about anything on here, but I know I really enjoyed it. So the subsequent second, third, and fourth listens of this album really kind of focused down into a little bit more of the technique, which is flawless on this. An accusation you may want to throw at Malevolence is they're not necessarily doing things you haven't heard other bands do before. I would counter that. Whilst acknowledging it, I would counter it and say, well, I can hear the trajectory. Had Malevolence's first album been like this, and now on album 4 they were just doing a more refined version of it, I would be in that camp as well, and I'd be saying, well, you're just slapping a new coat of paint on an old house, like, so to speak. I don't get that here. Like I say, I can chart that kind of growth and maturity in their songwriting, all the way right through to this release, which really does sound massive. Like, this is like, when we're talking about like venue size, this is the next size up venue. This is me starting to see them, like, you know, maybe like main support with a band like Mastodon tour in America, you know, big kind of arena sort of level. And that's not because they haven't put the work in. It's clearly there. They've clearly put the effort in. It just flowed really, really well for me. I mean, you pick out songs, but ultimately, I enjoyed this as a listening experience from start to finish. And the bits that maybe do stand out are the bits that maybe, like I mentioned before, Salt of the Wind, which like starts unconventionally compared to everything else, or when In Spite Randy leans in a little bit more. I also think the With Dirt From My Grave closing track is a really, really strong closer as well. Like I just don't think there's much in the way of anything here that kind of trips them up. I don't think it's originally I'd kind of, at the end of that first listen, I really liked it, and I was like, that does that mean it was a safe album? I don't think it's a safe album. I think it's just them kind of solidifying their sound, and like in a bigger way. Like this, like bands do this, and I'm just very thankful that hasn't given way to some of the bass elements other bands do, where you start to lose the identity of the sound. It is still there. This material will sit very comfortably amongst older material. It's not as if you like everyone in the band's going to be swapping instruments to jump into the next song. It doesn't feel that way at all, but it is notably a bigger album. Like it's like just like straight away from the first like note, the production elevates this quite a bit to a level where there's more serious eyes, quote unquote serious eyes, now going to be paying attention to them. And I think Malevolence are the sort of band that can easily hold their weight. And like I say, riffs for days. That'll never like, just when you think you're like, right, well they're all riffed out now. The next album comes around, you're like, I was a liar. I was naive. immature, it's uneducated, ill-informed, if you will. But yeah, this is great. I think it's like kind of almost like an effortless listen. You know, it's like one of those ones, and I'm going to come back to it again. A lot of the best moments of kind of early 2000s metalcore for me were the albums that you shoved on, you listened to from start to finish, and you go all the way right through it, and you just kind of felt like, right, this is a band that knows their sound, like all the way right through. Malevolence are a band that know their sound all the way through. Doesn't stop them throwing in the occasional surprise, but at their core, their sound is just defined as fuck. So yeah, where only the truth is spoken is just once again going to make the band bigger, going to get more eyes on them, and I'm kind of happy for that to begin with, because these are the sort of bands I kind of want to root for from the UK, because this sound here, if it's not already tailored for American audiences, it is now. Get fucking ready. So yeah, I thought it was really, really good. How about you? If memory serves, you were maybe slightly higher on the previous album than I was.
I was, yeah. I think I gave the last one 4.5.
So what do you think of this then, Dave?
I think in a lot of ways, I think Where Only the Truth Is Spoken showcases that growth that they've made. And certainly there's growth here between Malicious Intent and this release a few years later. You can definitely hear that there's more tweaks being made. I do have a little bit of a gripe, which I'll come back to, but obviously.
So you say they've sold out, Dave. I'm fucking...
but on the positives first, like they've definitely strengthened the size and the weight of their sound, giving you like an album of songs that just really exude this gargantuan heaviness, but along with this really razor sharp precision and anthemic choruses. They've got them for days, and they had them on the last album as well. But like you said, on every release from Malevolence, you can hear them like in your head. You can hear them moving from one festival stage to another festival stage, and each time it gets bigger and bigger. And when I listened to this album, I could totally imagine these songs being played, as a headline set at Bloodstock or something like that. Like, it has that huge scale, to that festival size scale to it, which is reinforced by a production that is, as you mentioned, quite frankly ridiculous. This is the sort of production you expect from a Gojira or a Machine Head or a Lamb of God. The kind of upper echelon of metal bands who have those huge labels behind them, and Malevolence are now in that same collection of bands.
Yeah, interesting. They're still kind of, because they're under their own label as well, working in partnership, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which is genius moving. I mean, if I'm them, that means you're getting more money back.
True.
Like, I'm just going to say to other bands out there, just use this as a template, please.
Yeah.
Because you're controlling more of your real estate by doing that, which means longer term, I would imagine a lot of those kind of rights issues that a lot of bands get with publishing might not be as applicable.
I think, as I was saying, I think they are within that kind of same group of other kind of top tier metal bands. But actually, when you think about it, they don't even have the same, what would you call it, years of service, I suppose, as those bands mentioned.
How many albums did Gojira have to get out before people were like, yes, they could headline, download?
True. I mean, like, a lot of those bands I mentioned have been going since the late 90s. And if you think about, this is what album 4, if you think about album 4 from Lamb of God, you got Sacrament. Gojira had The Way of All Flesh. Machine Head Supercharger. All right, fair enough. That one doesn't work, but you get my point. Like, I feel like Malevolence are competing at that level, but in a much kind of shorter space of time. And although we get that like development of the sound on this release, we also get like a lot of the good shit that we know and love about Malevolence. Those character traits that make up that sound. The chunky grooves are enforced, that kind of like Pantera kind of weight to it. You've got the more kind of uplifting kind of metalcore stylings that kind of bring to mind like Killswitch and stuff like that. And then you've got those more aggressive kind of nasty moments that you'll kind of pick up like kind of hints of like Hatebreed or even Terror to an extent as well. Also, like a band that I love that it's kind of not really been that active for a while, but Throwdown as well. There's a lot of Throwdown kind of moments on this as well.
I actually thought there's a track on here, might be Imperfect Picture, where I originally thought is it Dave's the front. I can't try and remember his name. Is Dave?
Yeah, I think it was Dave.
I thought Dave was guesting on it, and it's
Yeah.
just his vocal styling. He just like
Yeah.
slipped in it, and there's a very Pantera groove
Yeah.
on that, which made me think of kind of later day Throwdown. So
Yeah, there's like a little bit of a kind of southern swagger on some of these tracks.
Yeah.
What was the one? If It's All the Same to You, I think it was. You've got that kind of like just groove laden kind of headbanger riff,
Yeah.
but it's got something a bit kind of quicker in tempo that you would hear from like a Throwdown. The other thing you mentioned, vocally, I think this is really well executed. You've got Alex and Con who are doing the two vocal parts, one doing the kind of aggressive, one doing the cleans. And like this album just gives you so much like grit and savagery in those heavy parts, but those melodies are even more compelling on this release. The memorability factor is great, like, and it's those melodies that really drive that home. And also, like you were saying, the enunciation of them both is just spot on.
Picture perfect.
You can make out every
some
single
of that
word.
is production, like some of that is production, but like that's a small part in it. That's just like that's good vocalists using great technique.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's only going to help when it comes to live shows. You're going to get people just singing those melodies back. Even and then the one gripe I had on the last album was
The flute.
was the ballad. They had, was it Higher Place? I think the last album's ballad. I wasn't the biggest fan of that. It was quite on the nose.
Kind of, you have to. There was a kind of unwritten rule book somewhere for these sorts of bands that they have to segue. But even when I mentioned Shadow Falls earlier on, the song I was thinking of, I think is the only ballad on that album as well. But they kind of like the producer saying, right, guys, it's the label as well. The producer and the label are sitting down like that. This is all sounding brilliant. I love every savage groove just makes my dick grow. But now listen to me. At some point during the gig, people are going to need to go and get a pint, refresh, go for a smoke or whatever. So I'm just going to need you to put 2 minutes of cleans, right? 2 minute clean strummed guitar, right? And like you can use electric, but just use a clean sound, right? And make it really ballady and like over the top. And then if you want to heavy up at the back end, we don't care what it sounds like after the cleans, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to need it. And the band's like, all right then. They all go away. Because they're all kind of almost cookie cutter as well. They all follow exactly the same formula.
And they have, like, they've gone down the same kind of route of, you know, even where it's placed in the middle of the album. But I do think they've handled it slightly better on this one. Salt the Wind has a very, like, it kind of reminded me like of a kind of like older Pantera, like that kind of Cemetery Gates, Hollow, This Love, that kind of formula, where you've got that kind of
Pantera's fault.
Yeah, it is. It always goes back to them. You've got those like the clean introduction with the you know the pick guitars and the melody, and then but as the track goes on, it starts to kind of ramp up, and they give you a bit more kind of oomph in the heavier parts. And I felt like this one was a bit easier to swallow for me. It's still like it plays out like I expected.
There's a butt coming up here. But I'm unsure where the butt's coming in because there's a lot of praise being flung at the band thus far. So what is it? Let me tell you the question then, Dave. What is it that maybe isn't floating your boat?
It's my only gripe is, and it's kind of what I just touched on there with that ballad. It kind of plays out like I expected. I think as much as I enjoyed what the guys are laying down on Where Only the Truth Is Spoken, and the band are absolutely firing on all cylinders here, I felt there was a bit of a slight level of predictability for me on this album. There wasn't really a moment where I was surprised by anything that transpired on this release. The closing track, like, there's a slight change in comparison to the closer on Malicious Intent. It's a bit more intense. And yeah, like on this album, they do sound bigger, they sound more refined, but you know, they haven't really changed the blueprint at all. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Like we've mentioned Lamb of God, they're a band that don't do that either. You know, their sound
not for
hasn't.
At least how many albums? 5?
Yeah, I know.
5 at this point, I think.
They stick to that formula, and you know, there's small adjustments for sure, but and that totally works. I'm a Lamb of God fan, and it does work here. This is like a sonic declaration of intent. You know, it's very self-assured, it's memorable, and it's produced incredibly well. I think it'd just be an album that kind of fits a certain mood for me. Like if I'm in, like, you know, I want the big riffs and the heavy drums, the killer vocal melodies, you know, something to sing along to, then I think this will fit the bill.
I'm saying, you don't have to think about it.
No, you don't.
It's a horrible thing to say about a band that are playing as well as they're playing on this one.
Yeah.
But you can switch this on, and if you're in the mood for it, it doesn't feel its length.
Yeah.
You will fly right through this easily.
Yeah,
And get to the end of it
for sure.
Like not unhappy. Like so.
Yeah, there's like, I have movies like that as well that I put on, you know, just like something I can just switch off to and just kind of sit and enjoy. And this album was very much
always cornier. Put the bunny down. Like it's every time you like, put that bunny down.
I was going to go Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, but fair enough. In comparison, though, to some of the releases I've heard in 2025, I don't know. I don't expect I'll come back to this quite as much as some of those releases. I think, you know, they're giving me something a bit more with a bit more uniqueness to them. But, you know, it still has a certain appeal. You know, when the mood strikes for something heavy yet melodically memorable, then yeah, I'll definitely stick this on. But yeah, that's my only kind of gripe or downside to this album. It was just kind of played out kind of exactly how I expected it to. So, final thing, scores for the new Malevolence album, Where Only the Truth Is Spoken. What are you thinking?
I'm going to come in at 4.5 on this one. So I'm going to come in 0.5. I think the production elevates it for sure. I just think they sound bigger. And some of that is production, but I think a lot of that's confidence. I think they're just more confident in their sound than they've been before. And as a result, I enjoy this album more than I enjoyed the previous one. So it's 4.5.
Yeah. We're doing a bit of a switch. I'm going 4.85 on this one.
I can feel it in the water. You were going down a 0.5.
I think I felt there was a bigger jump from Self Supremacy, the album before Malicious Intent, to that release. I think the sound kind of just grew massively between those albums. This one, yeah, there's another incremental jump, but I didn't feel like it was big enough that I was like, oh my god, this is like crazy different, or, you know, they're really switching things up here. It just kind of played out like I was kind of expecting it to. It's very well written. Like they sound very comfortable in their sound. It's like, as we said, it's excellently produced. They're very good at what they do. I imagine they'll get some killer tours out of this album.
Yeah, this could be a big one for them, I think. So.
Yeah, but yeah, it's for me, it's not like an end of year list type album, but an enjoyable listen. So I'm going to go 4 out of 5. So that is the new release from Malevolence. Comes out on June 20th. Check out the links to the pre-order, the band. I've put a single there as well, so you can have a listen. Let us know what you think. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on the new album. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.